But once I told them that I already had a son, everything changed. It was more like, whoa, you need to have an abortion.
I wasn't strong enough to fight for the baby's life, so I was influenced to go ahead and do that because they said it was best for me because I wasn't ready, to have a family. I wasn't ready to have a child.
But I wonder sometimes because if they can do something now to help the babies live, I wonder if they could have done something then. They just chose not to, or told me that there was nothing that could be done because I was having a black baby.
Once I told them that I already had a son, everything changed, everything changed, everything changed, everything changed, everything changed.
The slave breeding bed, this was some slave owners, this is what they exclusively did. They didn't grow a particular crop or were engaged in agricultural pursuits per se. There were some slave owners that this is all they did was just breed black people, and so they would travel oftentimes to plantation, and so this bed was mobile, and they would take Africans and force them to sleep with each other in order to breed.
I was having a black baby. I was having a black baby. I was having a black baby.
Soon I will be
In 1885, slavery is abolished and plantation owners are now faced with a dilemma. What will they do with all these free, uneducated Negroes? Apply a stern and rigid policy of sterilization and segregation to that grade of population whose progeny is already tainted. Birth Control Review, Plan for Peace, April 1932, Volume 26, Number 4. There were three major methods used to control the black population. First was the use of forced sterilization. It started in 1907. Many African American women were sterilized against their will or without their knowledge while they were in the hospital for childbirth. Many of the victims were later told they were sterilized because the government thought they were feeble-minded. The second method was the invention of the birth control pill. The pill was forced on African American women, and many of those women died. The third and most effective way is abortion. Right now, African Americans make up 13% of the U.S. population, but account for 38% of abortions. During the early stages of population control, force was the major tactic used to decrease fertility among African Americans. But a new approach found its way to the African American home: pressure and persuasion. This is Monica. She was pressured to have an abortion by clinic workers. She chooses to remain anonymous.
After I had had my first son, about 8 or 9 months later, I had a feeling that I was pregnant again. I went to a clinic and they told me that I was pregnant. I remember when I first went there, they kind of were in the middle, like, yeah, maybe you can do it. But once I told them that I already had a son, everything changed. It was more like, whoa, you need to have an abortion.
Adrienne was also pressured into having an abortion. As a result, her body was unable to carry a child, and she had 3 miscarriages.
We were on vacation in another city, and I wound up going to the hospital. The first day I was in there, they kind of stabilized me. They had me with my head down and my feet up, and then they took me in after a couple of days for an ultrasound to see the status of the baby, where she was. I could see her head, I could see her face. She was doing this, she was stretching out. I said, oh, I can see her and everything, and the doctor who was doing the ultrasound told me out of the blue, why are you trying to hold on to this baby? Why don't you just let nature take its course and let her be born and be done with that.
Carla became pregnant at the age of 16 and was forced to have an abortion. As a result, she suffered in silence for many years.
I became sexually active, but I was trying to resist it. I was about 16 when we started dating, and he kept pressuring me to, to become sexually active. And I said I didn't want to because I knew I shouldn't, even though I didn't know the Lord. And I really, I was going to church, but I just no, I didn't want to do it. So I eventually gave in because I loved him. At least I thought I did. When you're young like that, you think that's the real love. And I did become pregnant. I knew I had missed my period, and I had, had some nausea. And then somebody noticed that I was going through those symptoms and said, I think you're pregnant. I was like, oh, I don't think so. But then I found out that I was. And then I was encouraged to have the abortion.
All they would tell me basically is that is your next step. That is what you need to do. Let us help you get this done because you already have a child. You're young. I just turned 18 once I had my first son, so I'm almost 19 around that area. So I'm not in school like I'm supposed to be. I'm nowhere near graduating. I'm nowhere near being in a career field. So for them to tell me, well, this is what I need to do, I felt like that was my only option and that I should do it.
I got upset with him and told him I was willing to take whatever God was going to give me. I was going to do everything I could to hang on to the baby, and it was none of his business. He apparently told my attending physician later, and she came in and asked me what had happened, and I told her, and I said, besides, when you have babies and you identify that there's something wrong or you diagnose something wrong before they're born, isn't there something? Don't people do that all the time where they find out what's wrong and they operate on them later? And she told me with a very straight face, no.
So I was taken to a clinic and they put me on anesthesia. I remember it. It's like it was yesterday. So when I did have the abortion, after I had the abortion, as soon as I came out of the anesthesia, I began to cry. And I just felt so, the only word I could think of is devastated after that. I bled a lot, afterwards. And then I was told to just go on and go back to school and do what you have to do. And don't talk about it.
They gave me a website and a 1-800 number for me to call. And they was like, if you get in contact with these people, they'll give you a caseworker and they'll pay for you to get your abortion done. When I called the 1-800 number, I was given a caseworker. And the first thing they asked me was, how many children do I already have? My educational background. And basically, the more kids you had, the less education you had, was the more money that you qualified for like a voucher.
And I was stunned because I had no idea. I was thinking there was something they could do because I asked her, is there something that they could do? Not only her, but another doctor come and tell me there was nothing they could do even to hold on to her. After she was born, the things that doctor told me were wrong with her, I didn't see any evidence of that. So from my standpoint, if I had gone ahead and done what he suggested and just let them abort her, then I would have aborted a perfectly good baby.
As years went on, I just kept going through. As I got married and we were trying to get pregnant, and I couldn't get pregnant. The doctor said that it was secondary sterilization or secondary infertilization. So I said, okay, this was probably because of the abortion.
After the abortion, each woman went through their own struggles emotionally and physically.
It kills me till this day. It becomes a regret because it's like I let someone else pressure me or tell me that I couldn't do this and that for my child when that should have been a decision for me. And my parents or me, and of course my spouse, you know, who we did that. That never had anything to do with anyone else. And I felt I was never given that chance to be able to speak to someone for me to be able to be more educated on it. It was more just, this is what you need to do, and these are the people you need to contact. And without it, I don't know where your life may head. And I truly believed it.
And she was born at like just at 23 weeks. And she was fully formed. The only thing that was not formed were her lung capacity and her heart. They were not where they needed to be for her to live. But you know, I wonder sometimes, because if they can do something now to help the babies live, I wonder if they could have done something then. They just chose not to, or told me that there was nothing that could be done because I was having a black baby.
I did not want to, but I wasn't strong enough to fight for the baby's life. So I was influenced to go ahead and do that because they said it was best for me, because I wasn't ready, you know, to have a family. I wasn't ready to have a child. That, you know, I had my life ahead of me, and it just wasn't the right time. It wasn't the best thing for me to do. And I regret it. I do regret it. If I had it to do over again, I would never do it. And I wish I was strong enough to fight for my child's life, but I wasn't.
These three women live with the effects of population control every day. Based on these stories, population control is not a myth, it's a fact.
There are a lot of people in this country that don't like the fact that in their mind there's so many blacks. There always seems to be an issue where somebody sees somebody else and they see them as a threat, and they take steps in different ways to reduce the population, with the thinking of, if there are not that many of them, I don't have to worry about them. We can do whatever we want. There's something about being impoverished where you believe that life is not good. Something like, this is hard, I don't want to bring somebody else into this. People make up somebody else's mind for them without giving them the opportunity to find out if you like to live.
The gift of life is sometimes taken for granted, but for these women, life is a gift.